opponent declares, I will not come over to your side, I calmly say, your children belong to us already. What are you? You will pass on. Your descendants, however, now stand in the new camp. In a short time, they will know nothing else but this new community. That was Adolf Hitler in 1939 in a radio address.
Never invested as much in public education as we should have because we've always had kind of a private notion of children. Your kid is yours and totally your responsibility. We haven't had a very collective notion of these are our children. So part of it is we have to break through our kind of private idea that kids belong to their parents or kids belong to their families and recognize that kids belong to whole communities. Once it's everybody's responsibility and not just the households, then we start making better investments.
And they then flash up in the official MSNBC promo forward, which is the original name of the slogan for the Marxist, over 100 years old. It's like 120-something years old. And I shot a whole special video report on that that's up on Infowars.com. The state declares they own your children. And that was the MSNBC host or propagandist, directly worked for the White House. When you watch MSNBC, you were getting pure ambrosia poison directly out of the White House. That is their agenda, on record. Your kids belong to the collective is the article by Kurt Nemo, red linked up at Infowars.com. It's a story that came out yesterday, but I've had our great web crew move it back to the top of the page, linked in red. Melissa Harris Perry. You know, I remember, it was about 8 years ago, a caller called in and he said, "You're a liar, Alex." He said, there is no way that the official University of Texas textbook for social workers, and I was giving the name out, it was the Calhoun Reader, there's no way, and Bob Dacey had actually brought this to my attention, local talk show host. Yeah, he had a copy of the textbook that family had been given going to UT, and the people didn't believe me. And so I had some of my writers go do research, and they pulled up hundreds of publications that were then posted on the Prison Planet forum, where they officially teach they're going to get rid of the family. So when you hear them say, oh, it's everybody's job to take care of kids, they mean get rid of parents, you know, don't let parents discipline their kids, and that only the state can discipline your children, and then your kids will stay late at school, and then no more summer recess. And the TV's already raising our children anyways, and the brainwashing that comes across the iPhones and the iPads and the droids and the rest of it. But they officially, in every authoritarian society for thousands of years, the state has controlled the youth. And Hitler knew that. I mean, he talks about taking over the youth in Mein Kampf. Now, I mean, I've read myself Hitler's words. The Soviets, obviously he borrowed a lot from. The communists, they have, of course, done the same thing. I was actually sent video by some folks. I think we've shown this on air before. I know it's on, I was going to put it in a film. I know it's in Rob Jacobson's hard drive where one of our graphics guys, a contractor years ago, went to visit with his girlfriend, her family in China, and caught on video the youth brigades with red flags marching aggressively through the streets. Pretty powerful footage. This is what they're establishing. This is what they're setting up. So we're going to get into that. We'll have the latest from the DMZ, where world-famous negotiator and hostage negotiator and PSYOP expert, Dr. Steve Pieczenik, psychiatrist, will be joining us from the DMZ. It's about 6:04 over there right now. I trust we've made contact with him to make sure he's ready in about 55 minutes. Good, he's locked and loaded. We've got huge news with Biden calling for a new world order, and then Gawker makes fun of it. Oh, conspiracy Christmas comes early, because they were just saying last week, you know, in a major poll that the poll, do you believe in the made-up New World Order conspiracy theory? It's like saying, do you believe the sun came up this morning? Are you a kook? So we'll break all that down. It's a big broadcast today.
I'm Darren McBreen, and these are some of the new items that are available now at InfoWarsShop.com.
Alert the public to Obama's blatant abuse of power with the new Obama t-shirt. Obama's Joker face on the front and come and take it on the back. It's time to publicly call him out for what he is, a tyrant. Defend the Second Amendment with our top seller Come and Take It t-shirts. And look at that, women's cut tank tops and t-shirts now available. Nice hat. plus the Don't Tread on Me flag. And now you can become a micro distributor of the InfoWars magazine. Plus, get your own copy delivered right to your door each and every month. And if you're tired like I am of you and your family being exposed to polluted drinking water, get the Pro One high-performance water filter. It gets rid of all pathogenic bacteria, cyst, fluoride, heavy metals, and numerous other contaminants.
So join the revolution at InfoWarsShop.com.
It is lucky number 7. It is the 7th day of April, 2013 on this worldwide transmission. I am your host, Alex Jones. The news websites are Infowars.com. That's Infowars.com, PrisonPlanet.com, and we're streaming video and audio as well for radio listeners that would like to see another added dimension to the radio broadcast at InfoWarsNews.com. On our subscription service, PrisonPlanet.tv. And don't forget, we have Operation Awaken the Sleeping Giant. You can find out about right there at PrisonPlanet.tv. Okay, where to start today? Where to begin? I want to read you a quote from a 1939 radio address that Adolf Alois Hitler gave. You may have heard of him. When an opponent declares, "I will not come over to your side," I calmly say, "Your children belong to us already. What are you? You will pass on. Your descendants, however, now stand in the new camp. In a short time, they will know nothing else but this new community." Adolf Hitler. And he said similar things years before in his book, Mein Kampf. Now, the communist system in Russia, the communist system in China, Fidel Castro's Cuba, everyone knows that in these countries, the police wear black masks, the state turns the children against the parents, the state tries to raise the kids in dormitories, and really raises a generation of tax police and other enforcers out of children that they have CPS'd for very petty reasons via the Soviet or Nazi courts. The Romans just came in and killed all the adult age men down to about age 13, 14, and then re-educated everybody. And so ancient empires just killed all the men and then took the women and children as slaves and then took the smarter ones to basically be enforcers, but still chattel slaves. They would be so proud of being a war slave, though. They had large brigades in the Roman Empire from the end of their republic on till their decline and the splitting into two empires, but I'm digressing, of special slave mercenaries who were proud of their slavery. That was passed on to the Prussians in Germany, of course, and that's where we get kindergarten. All the modern brainwashing systems we have today are designed to make people follow orders and be happy in their servitude. The Hessians were German slaves brought here to wage war on us in 1776, tens of thousands of them. So, but there was the prestige. Even if you were a slave, Hessian, you still had a fancy uniform and black, goose-stepping boots. But I'm digressing, ladies and gentlemen. You know that authoritarian states try to take over the children. And I have read on air the official textbooks used by every major Western university. They all tell the people aspiring to be government minions and enforcers to have a disdain for the family, a disdain for men. If you turn on any sitcom or drama, men have been run down for 50 years as moron idiots with women bossing them around, the new commanders. They are the house slaves. The Romans would bring in the women. Even as the boys grew up, they were kept out in a barn and not allowed to learn how to really speak. You didn't want men knowing how to stand up. That was passed on to black slaves in the Caribbean, in South Central America, and, of course, here in the United States. That's why you've heard of that before with the woman, the house slave in charge. Well, that actually came out of Rome, mainly with white slaves. But side issue, feminism is not about empowering women, makes them the house slaves. They have a more pejorative name for it that black folks tend to use for it. But it's the people that are in the house. And that's what the police and the bureaucrats and the FBI and all of them are. They're the house slaves. And then those of us that aren't part of the federal family, we're the barn slaves. I mean, that's how it's all set up. That's how it's looked at. And so that's what they've established. And they all write handbooks on it. And I shot a special report up at Infowars.com. The state declares that your children are slaves is the name of the video. The article is MSNBC host. Your kids belong to the collective. So my issue is I'd talk about this 15 years ago, 7 years ago, and people would say you're a liar. Even when I was on the radio with the official textbooks, in one case, the Calhoun Reader, used at the University of Texas for their social workers. And it said, quote, the family belongs to the age of barbarism and is a form of mental illness. And you can also pull up the head of the National Association of Psychiatrists in the 60s saying the same thing. So they sell it as a new human right to not have a family because they want you all alone, completely alone. That is the great goal of every authoritarian society. In fact, I ought to send somebody down to the microfilmer. We should get a LexisNexis subscription. I had a Thomson Reuters subscription about 6, 7 years ago, but I never used it, so I got rid of it. Guys, on Monday, get a Thomson Reuters subscription and a LexisNexis. Google's great, but you can't find stuff, you know, year 2000 and back good on the web. Okay, so I want the 2000 Austin American Statesman. When I caught bribery at the Capitol, it was the cover story in the Metro and State, you know, about investigation of bribery that we caught on video, and I was there testifying. They were just paying them off out in the hallway. And then they later had a state hearing, you know, finding that it was illegal what happened, and the individual over the committee got censured and things. The point is that they quoted one of the handgun control, I think it was Violence Policy Center. They quoted them, and they're saying, I don't care what Mr. Jones does. We're going to get your guns one day. We've got your kids. I mean, I want that quote. I probably read that quote 50 times on air. 50 times. And I want to resurrect that and actually show people that. So LexisNexis on Monday, because I want to show people that. And you know, there it was saying, it doesn't matter. We've got your kids in the public school, and we will ban guns in America. That's why I get so mad at people like Piers Morgan when he says, I don't want your guns. Bull! By the way, it came out this week. We've got them coming on later in the week. The Veritas Project, they told me about this weeks ago before they went and did it. They went to the house of Piers Morgan in Hollywood. He's got armed guards. But he doesn't want you to be able to, who can't afford, you know, you don't have an $8 million a year contract or whatever like he does. You know, you're just a poor guy who makes $60,000 a year. Of course, Michael Moore says you're rich and you're a bad guy. And you know, if you maybe make $60,000 and it's racist to own a gun. Remember that clip 2 weeks ago? But of course, he's got armed guards, too. I've seen them, but it's on record. He has them. That's why I get so mad. They want our guns to dominate us, period. Everywhere they're in control, they take all the guns. So stop playing the game and arguing, hey, violent crime dropped 49% since 1991 because of proliferation of gun ownership, FBI.gov. They don't want to hear that. They have got an agenda of foreign banks that have captured this country to take our guns, and they're saying, hey, Hitler said we've got your kids. The gun control group said it doesn't matter what Alex Jones does. That was their answer to Alex Jones caught all this going on at the Capitol. Their answer was, we got your kids, and we're going to get your guns. Mr. Jones isn't going to stop us. And that's why I'm angry at them. They're authoritarians, and they know it. It's not like they're misguided. Now, here is MSNBC host in a TV ad they're running. It's not like it's something they just said flippantly. This is a TV ad they're running saying your kids don't belong to you, they belong to the collective. Here it is.
We have never invested as much in public education as we should have because we've always had kind of a private notion of children. Your kid is yours and totally your responsibility. We haven't had a very collective notion of these are our children. So part of it is we have to break through our kind of private idea that kids belong to their parents or kids belong to their families and recognize that kids belong to whole communities. Once it's everybody's responsibility and not just the households, then we start making better investments.
And they have an actual original Marxist slogan lean forward on the screen while she's saying this, knowing 99% of Americans don't know that's the original name of the first Marxist newspaper and their slogan, you know, Karl Marx slogan. I mean, they're just hitting us hard. And like they said, hey, while you're watching your football, buddy, we got your kids. 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 And now they're taking veterans' kids. who've had an arm or leg blown off saying they're depressed. Now they're taking people's guns if they have one marijuana cigarette, and their kids. These are authoritarians. This is a persecution taking place. I had tried everything. I'd cut back the amount of food I was eating. I was lifting weights and jogging, but nothing was working. My body was literally starving for minerals and trace elements as well as key vitamins. And as soon as I had that, I immediately could eat half of what I was eating previously and be satisfied. Now, there are hundreds of great products at InfoWarsTeam.com, but I want to point out the 3 that have helped me lose 37 pounds in just 2 months. Products like Beyond Tangy Tangerine, Pollen Burst, and Rebound. When I started taking the Tangy Tangerine and other products every day, I lost more than 37 pounds in just 2 months. Now that's results. I want to challenge my listeners to go to InfoWarsTeam.com and to order just 3 of their products, and you will see the changes in the way you look, feel, and in your appetite almost immediately. Start your journey to health and wellness today. InfoWarsTeam.com. Here's an example of the total information overload. If you're up at Infowars.com, I have a link to a Fox News story about an FBI police training manual. This has also been issued to the U.S. Army training instructor listed for domestic operations, of course. That's completely illegal in a free country, but we're just seeing the end of Posse Comitatus. Army labels evangelical Christians, Catholics, period. Period. Catholics, Christians, period, and some Jews, religious extremist. And this is Fox News. Now, if you watch my film Road to Tyranny from 2002, we show these same manuals, just the older versions. And people would see that and say, this isn't true. I would show Marines training to confiscate guns and admitting it, that it's for America. People would say, there's no way, that's got to be fake. When it was clearly, thousands of Marines, Hebron, Maryland, on the East Coast, West Coast. No way it's fake. Look at that, Fox News. Army labels evangelicals as religious extremists. Boom. You can click and read the Army training manual. And ladies and gentlemen, it just says, point blank, evangelical Christianity. Period. Orthodox Jews. Next to it, Al-Qaeda. Which, by the way, the AP announced they're not going to call them Al-Qaeda anymore, or even Islamicists, because they were using them in Libya and Syria. They got Hamas, Ku Klux Klan, next to Christian. Catholicism, period, is extreme. And you're like, well, that's incredible. Oh, and if you're Islamophobic, see how they're going to totally flip it? In fact, guys, I printed in IMs, and I don't see it in my stack. Type in Army trains to take on Tea Party. It's Forbes. I want to show people that. The Army's main mission, this is official from West Point, and the Army War College, is to take on gun owners, conservatives, libertarians. By the way, you're not tuning in to satire here. This is what it's like to be under a revolution. The globalists are involved in a revolution, in a takeover. They call us in their higher-level Ford Foundation manuals and in the different hearings that have come out with the Weathermen, they call us counter-revolutionaries. And you better believe that's what we are. We're the Americans. There it is, how the U.S. military would crush a Tea Party rebellion. And it goes on to talk about how in the new Army War College, and they're even teaching this at West Point, their main mission. Now listen, I'm reading you Fox News right now and Forbes. In fact, guys, if you're watching on TV, you can see this. Go back to my screen, foxnews.com. Now, again, I would tell people this. I would tell program directors this, big, vice presidents at major, networks, presidents, and they would say, oh, Alex, it's not that bad. And I'd say, oh, I've got the training manual. A few years ago, I had Nightline here trying to show them this. They go, we're not going to look at it. Look at this. Catholicism, period, is extreme and next to Al-Qaeda. Evangelical Christian, period, terrorism. And they've got it right next to Al-Qaeda and the Al-Qaeda flag. I mean, this is America. Ladies and gentlemen, I wasn't even intending to get to this today. Now, let me tell you, who are the extremists? Is it Catholics and Protestants, people with the lowest crime rates out there, or people that are church attending? The FBI.gov has all the numbers. They know somebody, whether they be Catholic or Protestant or whatever it is, that attends church on a regular basis, has the lowest crime rate out there for whatever reason. They know veterans have one of the lowest crime rates out there. Just the media hypes up when there are events. They know white males have the lowest crime rate of a, quote, racial group in this country, period. And we're listed as the #1 terror threat. Now, you got to have some bad guys to be saying this, okay? Look, it's like when I got video of FEMA that the police sent me, a firefighter sent me as police and firefighters in Kansas City, with them bad-mouthing George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and saying they were terrorists, and anybody that likes the Constitution is a terrorist. I got 18 hours of this. People didn't believe it, even though I had the training manuals when it was said. Now it's Fox News. You're going to believe me? Listen, I stand with George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, and I stand with Jesus Christ. And if you want to say I'm a terrorist, you're the terrorist, period. I have, knock on wood, no criminal record. I've probably been arrested 7, 8 times as a juvenile in fights, but it was always found I didn't start them. But I'm a good person, okay? I love my family. I walk old ladies across the street.
You know, Alex Jones, you piece of garbage.
Excuse me. Anyways, the point is I'm listed, you're listed as an extremist. You know why I'm dangerous, ladies and gentlemen, to the entire power structure? Is because I simply am old-fashioned, I'm a throwback, and I can see traitorous criminal activity when it's sitting in my living room. I go to the zoo, I go, that's an elephant, that's a tiger, that's a lion, that's a penguin, that's a grizzly bear. But you tell the general public, you know, they tell them a lion is a Easter bunny, they'd believe it. And now they've got MSNBC host Melissa Harris Perry saying your children belong to the state. Folks, they've always been teaching that for really 100 years in the progressive movement in this country. 100 years. And the weird thing about it is they're not even well-meaning idiot liberals. These are hardcore eugenicist authoritarians that know exactly what they're doing. Do we have her queued up? Let's play. This isn't a promo. This isn't on a show where she just showed us what she really thought. They're running this every 2 hours. I looked it up. Tuned in, boom, it was on there. They're running promos. See, people say, oh, be nice, be for gay marriage. I personally have nothing against people for their passions and what they're into, okay? I don't judge people. My issue is, though, it is the, quote, gay and lesbian lobby, the dominant ones, that are always bad-mouthing the family and wanting to teach sex ed to 5-year-olds. I mean, the UN wants to teach masturbation to 5-year-olds. That's pedophilia. So the issue is, you see, this is all part of an attack on the family, discrimination against men and women, to break up our society, to make us alone so the state is our mommy and daddy. That's what the communist, the fascist, all this is what they do. It's like going to a football game and 11 people line up on each side and they've got a pigskin and it's football. Well, this is tyranny. It's like, it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck. It is. There it is. UN wants to teach preschoolers about masturbation. I'm sorry, it's even below 5. I mean, you know, in fact, they do it in America. Remember when you were a kid in kindergarten, you went and took a nap after lunch, 15 minutes? That's not what happens now. The pedo teacher teaches that, but it's the state, so it's okay. But then if you take a photo of your daughters, you always see these cases of your son in their towel, and one girl's hugging the other girl, they're both in different towels, they arrest the parents and take their kids. And then they don't ever get them back. Or you get pulled over and they find a bowl of marijuana, which is certainly a lot better than alcohol, and I don't even like pot or, you know, period. I like alcohol, quite frankly. The point is they take your kids. I see... I did a video about this, showing a few news articles about people having their kids taken for, you know, a bowl of marijuana. Even if it's true, they shouldn't get in trouble for it when the government ships in the hard drugs. We're going to go to break here in just a moment. And people were all in the comments on YouTube going, yeah, it happened to me, happened to my brother. Yeah, they take over 1.5 million kids every year in this country. But if a kid's really getting hurt, they leave them with their bad parents. They want good kids to adopt out. They're targeting good families. We'll be back.
Prepare yourself for a talk radio experience like no other.
Strap yourselves in and hold on.
He stands for truth, He stands for justice. He stands for what's right. This is the Alex Jones Show. Now live from Austin, Texas, here's Alex Jones.
So the U.S. military, the FBI, local police are all taught that gun owners are extreme terrorists, that Christians are extreme terrorists, that returning veterans are the #1 terror threat in America because the globalists have set up the 5th branch of the military under Northcom, Homeland Security. It's buying billions of bullets, armored vehicles. It's openly preparing for the complete overthrow of our republic. And they've got people on TV saying the state controls your children. They've been putting Jocelyn Elders back on TV. You know, back in the 90s, we found a clip of it coming up. She's like, teach kids how to masturbate. Now she's on TV going, reach down and help the little kindergartners. And again, this is the type of garbage that is happening and going on here in this country. And it's now time that we understand they're over the top on purpose to just shock you into a mass Stockholm syndrome or learned helplessness, a normalcy bias. A normalcy bias is, and I've used this example 1,000 times, if you could teleport 1,000 years back to what's Mexico City today, and they were sacrificing dozens of people every day when the sun came up and when it went down and when the moon came out, and on certain holidays, thousands of people, and the priests made their money off selling the humans hanging up by their feet. Human meat was the main food. You would say, this is crazy. And they would say, we're going to sacrifice you, buddy, okay, because you're crazy. We do this. This is normal. If you teleported back to 1944 to a Nazi death camp where they were lining up men, women, and children and shooting them in pits, and you said this is wrong, they would think you were crazy. And so now they're like, hey, the state's going to take your kids, and any excuse we get, we catch you drinking 2 beers and driving, your kids are gone. We catch you with marijuana, your kids are gone. You got a leg blown off, we're going to say you're depressed, you're a military vet, we're going to take your kids. Millions of vets are getting letters saying you can't own guns anymore. This is happening right now, and it's not even a news issue. And they come out and say, yeah, we're training to take on the Tea Party now. That's what Homeland Security's for. Yeah, we're training to do all this. They're throwing it all in your face big time. Now, let's go ahead and go to this clip. MSNBC host, your kids belong to the collective. This article is up at Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com right now, linked in red. MSNBC host, your kids belong to the collective. And folks, this is every day. Okay, every day. There's stuff like this, and this is in a promo they're officially running. And MSNBC is full of White House operatives. So is Media Matters. And who do they attack every day? You guessed it, Alex Jones. Calling me an extremist because I don't believe Catholics and Protestants are extremist terrorists. Because I don't believe the Founding Fathers were bad people. They were amazing. Because I don't believe it's a good thing to take the citizens' guns when more guns means less crime. When I know we have authoritarians taking over. You go to the front page of Infowars.com, I typed in Hitler Youth. I have a famous Nazi poster of Hitler with the children. And remember, he said, when an opponent declares, I will not come over to your side, I calmly say, your child belongs to us already. What are you? See, you're little, you're nobody. You will pass on. Your descendants, however, now stand in the new camp. In a short time, they will know nothing else but the new community. And that's what the MSNBC host is saying. See, once they collectivize you with collectivist healthcare, collectivist education, they can then argue, hey, we got to say what you can eat, what you can drink, where you go, what you do, because we're all paying for it, forcing you to go on welfare. Forcing you to get into the system with corporate contracts. It's all about control because they want the control. And good people don't want control. We don't want to go to city council. We don't want to go run for state rep. We don't want power. We're quietly confident, inwardly secure. We're embarrassed by people that dress up like peacocks and are into, you know, all this garbage. Well, you know what? If we don't take control through the Republic and restore the Republic, the very worst will take over. See, once you get a corrupt group in, they get overthrown by the next group that's even more corrupt, and then even more corrupt, and then even more corrupt. And whether it was the Babylonians or whether it was the Druids, or whether it was African animist tribes, or whether it was Mesoamerican Aztecs and Mayan groups, Toltecs and others, every culture from the Vikings to the Greeks, they don't really teach that in popular history, but it's buried. They would just burn your wife with you if you died, the Vikings. Gladiatorial events with the Greeks and Romans started when the man of the house would die. They'd have a few of the slaves kill each other in combat ritually because he was a warrior at the funeral pyre. That's human sacrifice. Every culture ends with crazy people, psychos, get in control, and they demand human sacrifice. Every culture. That's the bottom of the rabbit hole. Ritualized mass death, and where your neighbor's being torn apart in the arena this week, you'll be torn apart next week, and no one has empathy, and civilization finally implodes. In fact, that's not the final step. Human sacrifice, gladiatorial events is not the final step. It's the final step before everything collapses. Because then the only next decadent thing the leadership can do is launch wars they can't win or commit suicide. The Roman emperors, Caligula and others, and that was long before the collapse, would kill themselves, kill their family. Nero, again, would go to those Roman parties where they had vomitariums, where they would eat till they vomited over and over again. And he would dress as a werewolf and tie small children to a pole. Pull this up, written about by mainline Roman history. And he would go and tear children's throats out with blood spraying all over him. That's North Korea, folks. That's the state is God. A little stunted, pot-bellied wimp ruling everything. We got a frontline report from North Korea with the guy that did the Camp David Accords, the top psychiatrist, the Harvard psychiatrist, the guy that co-wrote Tom Clancy's books, very famous living psych warfare specialist, probably one of the biggest out there, overthrown countries, you name it. He was involved in the transition of South Korea from a military dictatorship in the 70s to what it is today, the industrial engine of Asia and really the world per capita. He's there on the DMZ. He's going to be talking to us about that whole crisis. That is, again, out-of-control government on power trips. But let's go to this clip. MSNBC host, your kids belong to the collective. Here it is.
We have never invested as much in public education as we should have because we've always had kind of a private notion of children. Your kid is yours and totally your responsibility. We haven't had a very collective notion of these are our children. So part of it is we have to break through our kind of private idea that kids belong to their parents or kids belong to their families and recognize that kids belong to whole communities. Once it's everybody's responsibility and not just the households, then we start making better investments.
And you had elders, back under Clinton, the Surgeon General, and she's been back on TV, out there saying, the government needs to reach down and help the kids learn how to do this. Now, if you went in a public bathroom and ran up to a kid and grabbed their crotch, you go to prison for 50 years, and you should. But if the state, this goes on all over America. You can't stop them. They're the government unless you fully wake up to them. They're in there teaching kids how to masturbate. Because the truth is they're a bunch of pervs. Most of these people that want power have never really lived and never gone through the rites of combat growing up when they're young and don't come from good families. Big government's kind of a collection of scum. So are corporate swarms. They're like weak people that hate the strong. And people that aren't politically developed and things, they're usually sexually crushed as well. So they're at the level of a child, or they're pure Satanists like to abuse children. And that's why they want to put their hands on your kids. And they're going to take them from you because you're a veteran or you're a pot smoker, and they're going to hurt them. You're 7 times more likely now. It was 5 times. It was 3 times a few decades ago. More likely to be abused in government custody as a child than anywhere else. The most dangerous place is for a child in government. Who do you think gets into government agencies to be around kids? I mean, I told you the whole Sandusky thing. It was the whole top of the university. That's now come out. The connections to the National Security Agency. Look it up. They can't bring it down. Because the whole thing, it's a pedophile guild. They want your kids, folks. They didn't have them. They didn't raise them. They don't love them. They're sick freaks. Children are so good and so innocent to these demons, they want to hurt them. And so they say they belong to them. Now, I got clips coming back where they say you've got to do national service. Paying taxes isn't enough. They're going to make you their slaves. They're going to make you their slaves. We'll be right back.
Jakari Jackson here, and I want to talk to you for a second about water. You know about ProPure, our flagship water purification system, but check out some of our portable water filter products at InfoWarsStore.com. The clearly filtered water pitcher. Also, for those of you on the go, we have the Athlete Edition filtered water bottle and the RAD Eliminator Pro filtered sports bottle that removes radiation. And keep in mind, we have replacement filters for all of these products. The ever-popular grab-and-go bag favorite, the Life Straw, the Crystal Quest shower filter system, and the Aquapod kit, great for mass storage of water. And while you're at the InfoWars shop, pick up a copy of our latest book, 31 Days to Survival. You can find all this and more at the InfoWarsStore.com, and don't forget it's your support that funds our operation. Sign up for our free newsletter at InfoWars.com/newsletter.
Nobody rides for free. And that's a clip I'm going to play here in a moment, is Rahm Emanuel saying everyone will serve under national service. And that's part of the FEMA Corps official charter. They're now graduating high schoolers and college people who want to get government funding in their new little uniforms. They train in things like warrant service and gun confiscation. And it's all official. Giant black armored vehicles are being bought by the thousands. The bullets. ATF just put out a new federal bid for data mining stuff to spy on citizens' web traffic without warrants. And meanwhile, they'll probably just come out and say it doesn't exist. Oh, there's no bullets. There's no armored vehicles. We're not warrantlessly spying on you, but we are. But we are. Oh, we don't. The state doesn't want to take your kids. I saw a case 2 years ago in homeschooling. California banned it with a law unless you had a state teaching certificate, a degree in teaching. Doesn't matter if homeschoolers want all the spelling bees and colleges crave them and they have the highest test scores on average per capita worldwide. No, facts don't matter. The state said in the court hearing, they said, well, the state now controls the children and is the guardian over the parents, period, not just when they're at school. Now, the court struck that down. But the state argued in California, they run your kids. Kind of like California gives inoculations without parental consent, saying we are the guardian now. I mean, incredible. And you're like, well, the shots are to keep us safe. Uh-huh. Have you read what the insert says, folks? It's amazing. So I've played the clip of MSNBC in a commercial saying your kids aren't your kids. We've got to get past this idea, this private idea that your kids are your kids. They're not. They're the collectives. And then you've got Rahm Emanuel saying, oh, you've got to serve. If you actually read the plan, it's 3 months every year up until you're 60-something. That's in the official legislation they brought in. But publicly on C-SPAN, he says, a few months every year. This is what they're planning. But first, here's Obama. He said this 5 years ago, campaigning his domestic security force. And by the way, it's out there now. Clergy response team, preachers that spy on you, InfraGard, business people that spy on you. It's directly out of the Soviet Union. Here it is.
We cannot continue to rely only on our military in order to achieve the national security objectives that we've set. We've got to have a civilian national security force that's just as powerful, just as strong, just as well-funded.
If you had 20 traits that you went down a checklist of a tyranny, all 20 are completely checked, right out of a textbook. This would like be going to a NASCAR race and NASCARs are going around and you go, what is this? And I go, it's a NASCAR race. Conspiracy theorist. Yeah, 30-something% of Americans in a new public policy poll. It's way above that, as Democratic Party operative group on record. They believe in the imaginary New World Order. Imagine the question. Do you believe in the imaginary New World Order conspiracy theory? Oh, well, no, I don't believe in the imaginary corporate world government run by megabanks that are bragging they've set up world government everywhere. And there it is, Business Insider. A ridiculous number of Americans believe in crazy conspiracy theories, like a New World Order, new public policy poll shows. First, though, let's go to Rahm Emanuel, because I tell people they're already establishing national and compulsory service. It's not enough to pay if you actually work more than 60% in some form of tax. Now you've got to do more to be a citizen. You've got to serve domestically Again, they want our guns, but their people, their new Yugen, they're going to be armed. Here it is.
Citizenship is not an entitlement program. It comes with responsibilities. Everybody somewhere between the ages of 18 and 25 will serve 3 months of basic training and understanding in a kind of civil defense. That universal sense of service, somewhere between the ages of 18 and 25, will give Americans, once again, a sense of what they are to be American and their contribution to a country and a common experience.
By the way, I was in the Civil Air Patrol. My dad was really involved in it growing up. That's why I was involved in it. But, you know, we go flying around and stuff when there was fires and stuff, spotting or on rescue missions. He mainly did that. But I was into it somewhat. And back then, it was truly civil defense, the people, organized. And then they would just be called upon in missions and emergencies. They're getting rid of that in the Civil Air Patrol. It's all under Homeland Security, all under the Air Force. And it's all real creepy, spy on this, spy on that. Again, that's totally converting. I've talked to folks I know that are still in it. Again, you're not trusted in this unless you're part of their group because it's a foreign takeover. Remember, the Army's now taught for domestic operations, Catholics, period, evangelical Christians, period, are extremist terrorists. I just showed you Fox News. Now, again, ladies and gentlemen, this is what we've come to. Now, let's play Biden. This was on Friday. Vice President Joe Biden threw caution to the wind as he shockingly declared the affirmative task we now have is to actively create a new world order. He said this is the big import-export trade federal event, adding yet another admission to the already long list of documented globalist bragging of plans for a centralized one-world government at the Export-Import Bank Conference in Washington. I'm going to play the clip here, but the issue is I did a special report last week because the media was saying there's no such thing as a global government with scores of clips. You can just type in bankers declare they've conquered America and Europe, and then you'll find some of the clips, but I put it all in one report where they're all announcing global government, we engineered the financial crisis, we're going to implode the world economy, bring in a cashless society, SDR, we're going to need $100 trillion in taxes a year. This is Davos, on C-SPAN. I mean, I sit there for hours and just, my wife's like, can we watch a movie? And I'm watching, all the world leaders, like a public Bilderberg meeting, which people like Lindbeck says, don't exist. I'm bad to cover it. I'm like, man, come on, cover the whole thing, bro. Don't be afraid. And I'm watching them say all this. I mean, you guys type in, banks want $100 trillion in new liquidity, in new credit, which means our tax money. And they're announcing what the world government is, an autocratic, centralized government run by private megabanks. The Financial Times of London 4 years ago wrote a headline, and now for world government, their foreign editor, Bilderberg Group attendee. And he says, yeah, we're autocratic, we're authoritarian, we've been secretive, but we know best, we're taking over. He admits in the article, okay, you've exposed us. Doesn't matter, you ought to join us. I mean, I've had Rothkopf, the head of the Kissinger Group, on my show. And I said, why'd you come on my show during the break? And he goes, I want to convince you we're the right way to go, Mr. Jones. And, you're a very important person. You're part of the super class in your own way, leading the resistance. So you could do well. We'd like to hear what you have to say. And I could instantly go join them, and I'd be a U.S. senator or whatever. Or I'd be the next Rush Limbaugh, okay? If you just engage them and be their buddy. Do you know how real all this is? The only reason I can tell you the Rothkopf story is when they tell me this stuff is off record now, because I have a journalist hat, I can't talk about it if it's off record. I can talk about it because Rothkopf, they're on the phone line during the breaks talking to me. John Harmon's hearing the whole thing 5 years ago. He wrote Superclass bragging about all this. And he's like, no, I don't care if you say that I say you ought to work with us. We're trying to save the world. Well, the answer is no, you're not. No, you're not. You're destroying the family, you're bringing in tyranny, and I've had enough of it. So here's Biden saying new world order. There it is. World needs $100 trillion more credit a decade, says World Economic Forum. When you read it, it's a tax to them. They want to shut down productivity, folks. It's incredible. And then their propagandists say they're saving the world. Here is Biden calling for a new world order, and they define it in the whole speech as a global economic system controlled by private banks. Here it is.
The affirmative task we have now is to actually create a new world order, because the global order is changing again. And the institutions and the rules that worked so well in the post-World War II era for decades, they need to be strengthened, and some have to be changed. So we have to do what we do best. We have to lead. We have to lead. We have to update the global rules of the road. We have to do it in a way that maximizes benefits for everyone.
You know, if you go pull up my clip, it's up on Infowars.com. Here, let me actually pull it up. Give you the exact name. It's got scores of clips where they say, this is global governance, this is world government. It's the War on Reality Special Report. That's the name of it. In the last hour, I talked a lot about the collectivist, and at the lower levels, they're a bunch of idiots. I saw a video last week on the show, and Mike Adams was sitting in, the health ranger, naturalnews.com, doing a great job. He played that clip of that Colorado State rep saying, we got to ban 15-round mags and up, because after you shoot the bullets out of them, you got to throw the mag away. They're no good anymore. And so low level, they're complete morons. The globalists mainly, it's not a conspiracy at the low level because they just get idiots that are yes men and yes women that are dumber than a box of rocks, and they count on you being dumb. But higher up the collectivist are people that understand how humans operate. And most people that learn how humans operate, they go and use it to manipulate people like they're cattle just so they individually monetarily get ahead. And that's not my philosophy. My philosophy is to lift you up so that you lift up my family as well, because I don't need to believe in karma, mojo, reap what you sow. I feel it. And I'm not somebody that gets jealous of a guy that has a beautiful wife or a beautiful home or writes an incredible book. I admire them. And I grew up thinking everybody was like me. And I'm not saying I'm virtuous or anything either. I'm competitive as the next person. And if somebody crosses me, I have big problems with wanting to destroy them. It's just that I have a sense of justice. I'm a team player, which is the opposite of being a collectivist. I'm about the individual, but also working with others to build something greater, if you choose under free will. Now, we got Dr. Pieczenik. We're getting lined up here from the DMZ there in Korea to cover that crisis coming up, and I'll get into other news after he leaves us. But let me punch up for TV viewers. If you're a radio listener, go to Infowars.com. I went and swam in the river today downtown, did some exercise. Only had time to swim a mile. And it was just really great. It's like the Caribbean out there. There's so many big fish and turtles and stuff. And I got out, and I saw some red ants up on the hill where I'd parked. Walking back up from the river, the Brazilian fire ants have come in and killed most of them. There's these big ants that I grew up seeing. And I shot a video called Of Ants and Men. It's linked up on Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. And I just posted it about an hour and a half ago. Uploaded it as I drove into work from the swim. And, you know, I talk about Plato's allegory of the cave, coming out of the cave. And this guy says, Alex Jones believes in the philosophy of Plato, that philosopher kings must rule and should be appointed by a self-proclaimed enlightened think Illuminati kingmaker, historically called the emperor. This is the garbage that has spawned tyranny time and time again throughout history. Alex Jones is human garbage riding the wave of tyranny. Democracy and government at the founding. Democracy translate literally the people's strength. The population has armed and demanded rule by the will of the people. Well, number one, I support the Republic. So I can get what you're saying that I support Plato, but not his Republic. He was the original proto-eugenicist. I can take some things he said and then leave others. Like the allegory of the cave, people in a cave looking at projections like a television. It's profound, really, and coming up out of the cave to the larger world. That I was talking about. But that doesn't mean I endorse the philosopher king, because the philosopher king still builds a centralized system, and even though they can create a golden short period, corrupt people will take the place of the philosopher king and create the ultimate hell. But just as a republic produces so much wealth that comes out of tyranny, striving for liberty creates a great republic and wealth, then the generations become decadent. The generations become corrupted because liberty produces so much wealth, so that creates its own cycle. So I analyze the different cycles. And so just saying come out of the cave like Plato's allegory does not mean I endorse Plato, even though I've read, I don't know, a couple of his books. I mean, it's very interesting stuff. I first read one when I was about 12 because I heard that, you know, he wrote about Atlantis as if it was real. I wanted to see what the historian and philosopher Plato had to say. But I've read the other philosophers as well. I've read Nietzsche. Doesn't mean I agree in the Uber mention and, you know, having visions on the toilet. I have my visions out on top of a rock, you know, looking up into the stars. I have my visions watching my children play around, you know, and swim in the edge of the lake. I have my visions thinking about all that's good. We're going to go to break here, ladies and gentlemen. And when we come back, after this quick break, Dr. Steve Pieczenik is on the line with us, Infowars.com.